Hi there, this is Robert, and this is my second Warpath battle report and my first in 6mm. This time I decided I would keep all of the rules the same, except that I would reduce all of the distances in a ratio of 1 inch to 1 centimetre, so 12 inches becomes 12 centimetres, and so on. This makes it much easier to play with 6mm miniatures. I also first had this idea when Warpath had no casualty removal, and of course the game has changed now, so I'll be placing dice beside units if I'm not able to remove the right number of models from a unit just by taking them off. This should make it a little bit more complicated when calculating how many models are alive to attack, but it's not too much to worry about, and the game should essentially be Warpath as it was written. So this is a 1,500 point game, and I'll be playing Veermyn, and my opponent will be ForgeFathers. My force is a Nightspawn commander with 2 Nightcrawlers platoons, 2 Tunnelers, a Scourgers team, and a Stalkers team, and a Nightcrawler section. And one of those platoons will be bundled into a Tunneler, and the other Tunneler will take the Stalkers, the Nightcrawler section, and the Nightspawn all together. My opponent's list has a Hearthcarl on a Valkyr bike with a heat hammer, and then a Valkyr section with a heat hammer, and then a Steel Warriors platoon, 2 Steel Warriors sections, a light Drakkar, a Brocker platoon, and 2 Ordnance, 1 Jotun Hailstorm Cannon, 1 Sutter Heat Cannon. Rolling the scenario, we got Meat Grinder, and since the battlefield looks crammed in at this size, it kind of fits. First turn, the ForgeFathers gets first activation, and they shoot off my Scourgers with their Jotun cannon and do 2 damage. And then they fail to activate their Brockers. I'm about to declare return fire from my Scourgers when I realize their range is bloody 12. So there was no point putting them there. I just duck them back behind the building until I can get into position to disrupt the enemy line. I'm about to pass when I find out you can activate Tunnelers even on the first turn. Okay, so I try that, and it works. I pass the suppression reinforcements roll and get to pop up anywhere I like except for impassable terrain. So I pop up right on top of the Surtur heat cannon, because that's my biggest threat to the Tunnelers. I only get 1 damage, but since I haven't shot yet, I managed 2 damage on the Steel Warriors, and that's not great, not even a nerf test. And I have 2 arcs left with enemies still in them, and I managed 2 damage on the Surtur and 3 on the Hearthcarl on the bike, which kills them both outright, no nerf tests. We didn't see anything about the bike giving extra defense, so that really was just it dead. Kind of weird. In retrospect, I should have shot the Hearthcarl first, because of nerf tests, but it still worked brilliantly, so whatever. I've now gotten rid of the only 2 high damage weapons that could get the Tunneler this turn, or at least so I thought, because we forgot about the Valkyr's heat hammer. And so now I can start work on bringing out my troops without fear of the transport being destroyed. And I fail with the Nightcrawler section. I pass to my opponent, he activates the closest Steel Warriors and gets them the hell out of there. Then he tries to activate the light Drakkar buggy and fails. I activate my second Tunneler, but fail the suppression test this time. His remaining Steel Warriors move away from my Tunneler, but try to shoot it. He gets -1 for long range because he wanted to be outside of 12. Makes sense. We decided the cover wasn't enough, even though it was technically in area terrain, and then he gets +1 for hitting a vehicle. He gets a few hits, but needing 6s to damage in my rear arc, it's too much. And he passes to me. I'm assuming that he's waiting for my other units to dismount the Tunneler before trying to activate. I move my Nightcrawlers on the right straight at the Drakkar buggy, then activate my Stalkers and take pot shots at the fleeing Steel Warriors. No hits. I try to activate my Nightcrawler. My thinking was that whether he activates or not, I will have finished my activations, meaning all my opponent's activations are then on 3+, and hopefully he fails. His Valkyrs try first and assault my Tunneler. They assaulted because his pistols mean that he is crushing strength 1 as well as piercing one, so when he charges me he'll be hitting on 2s instead of 5s if he moved and shot, which means, a lot more hits. They do 1 damage, but I survive, and it was at this point that both of us realised how much of a mistake it was not to take any unit upgrades, or at least we thought it was, because we both thought he didn't have a heat hammer at that point, and I didn't take any unit upgrades for my army. And we're both going to seriously struggle to damage armor because of this. And since I'm the only one with heavy armor, I'm already at a distinct advantage. With his steel warriors doing nothing against the tunneler, we end the turn. And yes, apparently you can shoot a target that was already assaulted that turn. If that's incorrect, please let me know. So at the end of the turn, he has 2 important casualties and lost a couple of warriors. And I've only taken a little bit of damage here and there. I'm more than happy for my tunneler to soak up another 2 damage before it dies, if it's going to draw that much attention away from the assault party that it disgorged. I'm going to have to leave the safety of the tunneler's protection next turn, though, if I want to press my advantage. At the end of turn 1, the score is 170 for me, to his nothing. Turn 2. I was really hoping for initiative, because if I can bring a second tunneler on now before he destroys the first, he may be tempted into splitting fire, which will really press my advantage home. He rolls a 2, and I get a 1. His Valkyries assault my tunneler again, doing nothing. He wanted to attack it again, but was worried about losing the initiative with important units, so he went for his warrior section on the right. They shoot at my stalkers, who look like they have cover, but because of the angle, they don't. Something funny happened when he shot. We checked, and he had a commander with a pistol and 9 riflemen. So the pistol was over half range, and the rifles were in half range, which means that the commander of the unit had -1 to hit from the rest of the unit, which is kind of weird. The commander misses, obviously. Almost everything else hits, and they kill the whole unit. Not even a nerve test. I have no idea why I got stalkers, honestly. He chances another warrior's activation to hit my tunneler with some rear shots. No luck. I try my second tunneler with a free activation, only to lose it again to suppression. So his Drakkar buggy decides to try and take out my tunneler with a pot shot. And we found out that since it's stabilized and fast, he could actually move 36 and still fire with no ill effects, which doesn't make sense. Of course, he can't do that since he'd have to go in a completely different direction, so he just does a normal move, turns 90 degrees and comes towards me. Extreme range, and this time I'm in soft cover, but still a large target. No penalty for him moving, so he hits on a 5, and that's not enough. At this point I was thinking he should give up on the tunneler, but then I looked around and realised that apart from a couple of units that are badly out of position on my part, I have nothing on the table but that tunneler. So he passes play to me, and I realise something. I clearly have no idea how to play Veermyn, or pick a list for them. They're supposed to be a horde army, right? At the end of last turn, I thought I completely had the upper hand, and now, if I activate any of my units, they could well get shot down straight away before getting support. And with Veermyn, support is necessary for a good nerve test. Well, may as well fire the tunneler. Seems I can hit the Drakkar buggy and then the Valkyrie unit twice. With all these shots, I end up sucking pretty badly. I don't wound the Drakkar once, and once we realised the defense value of the Valkyrie section was only 4, we realised I actually did 4 kills. 1 more would have been a nerve test, but that was still actually great. I'll try and distract his fire with the Scourgers. They're pretty useless at this point. I can't expect to do anything but soak up fire. And I don't want to wait till next turn for the other tunnelers before making a move with my Nightcrawler section and my hero. He moves his Brockers back towards the action and passes to me again. I take the Nightcrawler section out of the tunneler. I have no idea what to shoot at, but since they're short range, I go for the Valkyries. And I can't believe that this unit has a chem thrower instead of a chem burner. That gives a total of 17 shots. I get 7 wounds, wiping out the Valkyries. I decide it's time to bring out my Night Spawn hero, and the dice disagree. So he's stuck in the transport for another turn. His Jotun aimed for my awesome Nightcrawler unit. He was going to go for the tunneler, but since it's in the side arc, its shots have just as much of a chance to damage as any of his regular units that happen to be in the rear. He kills 6 guys, and now this is where I really needed the Night Spawn out. I'm nerve 6/8, testing with a +1 for the Tunneler, and they're gone. He passes back to me again. I think this was a mistake, because I only have 1 unit left to activate, so he's still going to be on a 3+, and he just gave me a free activation. I move my Nightcrawlers on foot up the side, and then he shoots his Warriors platoon at my Tunneler. With a big bunch of hits, he manages just 1 wound, and I survive into turn 3. At the end of turn 2, the score is 415 to his 180. So when we were totaling the score up, we had a proper look at my opponent's lists. And his Valkyrie unit, as I mentioned, did have a Heat Hammer. That's bad. That is really bad for him. That Tunneler could have been gone by now. And it is kind of my fault, since I was the one sifting through the rulebook and said the Heat Hammer is an upgrade, and I didn't realize he had bought an upgrade and whatever. So I told him to take a Heat Hammer attack, which seemed fair, and of course the poor sod rolls a 1 to hit. And he only needed a 2, and he would have had a Crushing Strength 6 attack on me. Yay for me. I need my other Tunneler to turn up now, and my 2 units running into the fray might be able to do something soon. I really misplaced them though. And perhaps it's just because they didn't tunnel? I don't know. If my second Tunneler fails to appear, I may leave my Night Spawn in the Tunneler, because at this point I cannot compete with his firepower, and my Tunneler is quickly losing target options as his units back off. But I really think he's screwed whether I leave him in or not, since 1 more damage will wreck my Tunneler and damage him anyway. So moving on to turn 3.